Welcome to Roadside History. Today I'm in beautiful Pine Valley, Utah, one of the most pristine areas in southern Utah. I'm kneeling here at the banks of the Santa Clara River, the river that would serve as the lifeblood to a good portion of southern Utah and help this area grow into the area that it is today. It's a beautiful area. While we're here today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history, some of the things that have happened in this area, as well as a historic church that has an awful lot to do with shipbuilding. Join me today on Roadside History, and if you haven't liked my channel or subscribed to my channel, please do so. Pine Valley, Utah, one of the amazing gems, absolute beauties of southern Utah. Very pristine, very well kept. Not a lot of people get up here. Of course, if you ask the locals, too many people get here. But for most people, Pine Valley's a little far off the beaten path. It's about 45 minutes north of St. George, Utah, and the scenery is spectacular. The history is incredibly rich, and there's so many great things to do here to recreate. I'm on this great big beautiful Santa Clara Riverwalk trail. It's an impressive trail that leads from the lake all the way up to the top of Pine Valley Canyon up here. It's a nice peaceful walk right along the side of the Santa Clara River. The Santa Clara River, as I mentioned earlier, will become the lifeblood to the individuals who live downstream. And still today, the water from the Santa Clara River is used to supply the water needs of a lot of southern Utah. Specifically, the communities that are south of this area, St. George, Santa Clara, Ivins, some of those areas receive a lot of their water here from the Santa Clara River. Anyway, it's a gorgeous area. I'm going to take you today down to the Pine Valley Chapel, one of the most historic and amazing buildings in Utah. This is a church house that was built by a ship maker who had no building experience other than building ships. And there's a little history behind that, and you'll understand why I'm telling you that as we go there, and you can see the design of the building. The building is actually still in use today, and it's an incredible sight to see, but that's not all. There's so many other amazing historical features in this area. Logging was a big part of this area. Ranching, cattle grazing is still a part of this area. Just a beautiful area. And if you've never had the chance to get up here, hop in your car, get yourself on a road trip, and learn a little bit more. The building that you see behind me is the Pine Valley Chapel, which was built in 1868 by a man by the name of Ebenezer Bryce. Let me tell you a little bit about Ebenezer Bryce. Ebenezer was from Scotland. He came here to the United States for religious purposes. He was a Mormon. While he was here, he moved to this area called Pine Valley because his wife's family lived in the area. His wife's family were the Gardeners. The Gardeners ran a sawmill further up the canyon. Anyway, Bryce would come to this area, and he would soon be commissioned and approached to begin building a chapel here in the Pine Valley area. Bryce didn't have the same kind of building skills that many people have today. He was a shipbuilder by trade. And so he understood and knew that if this chapel was going to be built, he was going to have to build it on his own terms. He was going to use a lot of his shipbuilding techniques to make this chapel happen. In fact, the chapel is said to be built as an upside down ship. If you ever go inside, you'll understand what I talk about. This is a 2.5-story building, but in order to make this building, he brought in 4 large granite boulders to place on each cornerstone, and then the men began to use pulleys and hoists to hoist the walls. They would use rawhide to tie that together so that the walls would hold. Eventually the rawhide would dry and the rawhide would hold the walls up, and then they could continue their building from there. The building would serve as a community center, as a religious center, even as a school. In fact, classes were held here until 1919. That was the last class that was held in this area. The building is incredibly remarkable. Let me show you what you're looking at. And I'll show some older pictures as well as we go through this video, but notice the stairwell. The stairwell on both sides is pretty impressive. See the stairwell there leading up to the building, 2.5 stories. In fact, you used to have to use a ladder to get to the attic, and now there's a steep stairwell that'll get you up there. But just an incredible facility. It's also on the it's registered in the National Register for Utah Historical Sites. So if you ever get to the small town of Pine Valley, this is a must-see. You can't miss it. The moment you come into town, you'll see the building. It's very large, and Considering the town is incredibly small, this building stands out. Again, just a beautiful building. The lumber from the building was harvested from nearby canyons. The gulch, which is just to my west of where I'm standing today, provided much of the lumber that would be used here, as well as Forsyth Canyon, which is directly to my south. Not only would lumber be used from the local areas to build this chapel, but lumber from our local areas would be cut down and milled and cut into 30-foot sections and be sent by wagon train some 350 miles to the north to Salt Lake for the purpose of building what would become known as the tabernacle. The lumber wasn't necessarily used for the exterior or the walls of the tabernacle, but it was used for the organ pipes. If you've ever seen the inside of the Salt Lake Tabernacle, the organ pipes are massive. 30-foot sections would be cut, placed on the back of a wagon, and then the wagons would work their way 350 miles to the north to the Salt Lake Valley so that they could be used in that area. Just a historic area. I mentioned Forsyth Canyon a moment ago. It's directly to my south. It's a beautiful canyon, large pine trees, yellow pines in the area. The gulch, which is directly to my west from where I'm standing. The men in this area had plenty of lumber and resources to choose from, and they began building what would become known as one of the great communities in southern Utah, and one of the best kept secrets as well. So again, if you're out in this area, stop by and visit. Learn a little bit about your roadside history, and while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Here we are again in beautiful Pine Valley, Utah. I'm going to show you, you can see the canyons to my backside. You're looking at Forsyth Canyon, but I want to show you some of this area. Just an absolute gorgeous area. In fact, Pine Valley would first be discovered in 1855 by an Indian missionary by the name of Isaac Riddle. As you can see here, this is a replica of a mill that would be here. Why would you see a replica of a mill in this area? Well, because Riddle and a man by the name of Jehu Blackburn and another man by the name of Robert Ritchie would be the individuals who would be credited with creating the first sawmill in the area. And the sawmill would go on to supply a tremendous amount of lumber for the homes throughout the many establishments here in southern Utah, not just in Pine Valley, but many communities further south of here. The valley is incredibly historic. I mentioned Forsyth Canyon is directly behind this mill here that you're looking at. And then further up canyon, you'll see some other areas where lumber was brought in and stored. The trail that I'm on right now here in Pine Valley is an area where the once most powerful steam-powered sawmill stood. It was called the White Elephant Sawmill. It was built in 1877. It was run by the Gardner and Burgess family, and it had the equivalent of 40 horsepower, which for its time was an incredible amount of power that enabled them to be able to rifle through these pine trees, these amazing pine trees that you can see all around me, the size of them. And on the very area that I stand, where a campground is now, was once the White Elephant Sawmill.